This week on your old school RuneScape update, while Guthix Sleeps arrives from 2008 and questions abound about its status in 2024. We discuss nostalgia, storytelling, combat encounters, and rewards. We ask if it all holds up in 2024 while using weird food analogies. This is the Old School RuneScape Update, episode 36, recorded Saturday, July 13th, 2024. A wonderful can of beans. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. Sirion and myself are in, as we are each and every week.
Hello, hello, hello.
Before we get too far down the tracks, I just want to direct our listeners to our Summer 2024 survey. We just want to know what you think of the Old School RuneScape update, what we could do better, what your favorite things are, and a couple of other little things. The survey will take about 2 minutes. We'd greatly appreciate your feedback by taking it. Head on over to update.show/survey. That's update.show/survey survey. And we look forward to seeing what you have to say about the podcast.
You call it like the big summer survey, but it's like a few questions.
Yeah, it's going to take you.
Just go and fill it in.
It's going to take you a minute and a half to do it at most.
It's shorter than the surveys that they put below the old school news post, so you should be able to, keep your attention span.
All of you.
Yes, that's right. That's right. We got Guthix Sleeps on the docket, one of RuneScape's Grandmaster quests of all time. Isn't that right?
That's what's been said.
That's what's been said, and to help us discuss that, we have a new addition to the podcast this week. Somebody by the name of Earth is joining us. Earth has been around RSB&B and Clan Quest for a long time, and around the RS3 show since the beginning, to the point where he would send in questions to that podcast each and every week, and over time he became a contributor and more, and even a host on the RS3 show, and he plays old school as well. So welcome to the Old School RuneScape Update, Earth.
Howdy.
Earth is going to join us for this Guthix Sleeps discussion, but before we dive too far into that, do you have anything that you'd like to quickly tell the listeners about your character or how you play RS?
I'm just here to get my quest cape.
Okay. Okay.
It's nice going through all the old quests and the new ones again. Because I only have one account. I haven't replayed them since they came out, right?
Yeah.
So, I've been having a really good time with that, and all of the new stuff that old school's adding that sort of branched off. I'm working towards Dragon Slayer 2 right now.
Ooh, nice. And this will be the last question before we dive into Guthix Sleeps, but what's your favorite native old school quest that you've done so far?
It's a tough question.
It is.
Well, I really enjoyed I did the Fremennik Exiles recently. I thought that one was really neat.
I don't think we've done that one yet. Have we, Sirion? No.
No, we have not.
I enjoyed it. And then all of the the Corrend ones?
Yeah, Corrend.
Are those the ones that didn't come out very recently?
Yeah, that's right.
Those were a while back, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of those have been pretty neat. God, I'm blanking. The Temple of the Eye was super neat.
I knew you would enjoy that one, especially how it all hooked into the content and what we're going to be talking about today, right?
Yeah.
As we say here on Update, when it comes to Quest Week, spoilers ahead. So just be aware of that if you haven't done Guthix Sleeps or any of its prerequisites related to that. But Temple of the Eye, of course, discusses the mighty Stone of Jazz. Alrighty, folks. Guthix Sleeps, the quest that rose to great acclaim when it arrived in 2008, and the whole business behind this quest is to put the Stone of Jazz in play. We, of course, start off this quest, and the whole idea behind it is to learn a little bit more about Mavario. We then learn that there's a huge threat with the stone and with Lucian wanting to steal it, so we build up a band of rebels to go and try and combat Lucian. But of course, as you know, as you play through while Guthix Sleeps, that doesn't exactly pan out the best way, and this all at the end culminates in a showdown against the Ballast Elemental and the tormented demons that Lucian summons, and we fight through those, and then bam, at the end of it, Lucian gets away with the Stone of Jazz. And I think if we were to put, one thing as the through line of what the goal of While Guthix Sleeps is in any timeline, is it's to put the Stone of Jazz in play with Lucian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And following through from that, we know, of course, that, and this was one of the things I wanted to make very clear of when I saw what was going to be happening with this poll. I did my research on this, and it appears as though that the old school team wants to go a different direction from where they went with the Ritual of the Majorat back in the RS2 days. So I think that's going to be very interesting to follow from this. But I think you guys want to start with the idea of nostalgia and where this landed with While Guthix Sleeps in particular?
Sure.
So, what for you guys was were the biggest moments of nostalgia in this quest that you were?
I mean, I feel I should like leave this to the two of you. I never did While Guthix Sleeps on release day in RS2.
Oh, really?
Really?
No, I was like a massive noob back in the day. Still, I was.
Oh, okay.
I was around for the release, I think, but I had only just restarted playing. So for me, it was always, the last quest before Questcape, which ended up being Nomad's Requiem in the end, I think. But
oh, was that before or after EOC?
Before, because I made a point of trying to get my Questcape before EOC, because it was like, oh, EOC is going to make everything harder and more complicated, right? Surely all of the quest bosses are going to be much harder, so I'm going to just get my Questcape before EOC comes out. And yeah. that did not pan out the way I planned, but hey, it's all okay. It's all okay.
Okay.
Fine.
My biggest nostalgia hit in this quest, and going back all the time whenever somebody mentions While Guthix Sleeps, is honestly Temple Desecrated for me. I don't know how you feel her.
The soundtrack?
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. Because it was honestly at that time associated with the Balanced Elemental and the Tormented Demon boss fight, and I think when you look at the RuneScape soundtrack and things they've even remastered over the years, Temple Desecrated did make its way into that collection, and as a result of that, there's always going to be that kickback with that takes you back to the initial discussions of While Guthix Sleeps way back when. So I think that's point number one, is to what was largely governing it for me, and I think it's interesting that that the thread is wound around your finger in the same way on that one. But as well with that, just the grand nature of it, I want to say, is I think what sold it for so many people back in the day, because it was the first Grandmaster quest. And the thing is, with that, when you look at what we have today in terms of other Grandmaster quests, and I think it's rather interesting timing that for Sirion and myself's part, we just did Song of the Elves, which that was our first Grandmaster. We haven't done any Grandmasters other than Song and While Guthix Sleeps, I don't think.
No, we haven't.
No. Okay.
I I am mistaken. It's not Temple Desecrated. It's the Sound of Guthix. It's the one when you first enter the temple that's
Oh,
going on with the
interesting.
puzzle. That's the one I love.
Interesting. I had no that one. That one for me was just flat. Okay, fair enough. That's allowed. And was it just, I think, because
Allowed. Thanks.
was that because it was just, puzzle related, quest related, the culmination
I don't know.
before
I
the
just
climax?
always really liked that track.
Okay, fair enough. What about, and this is the other thing I wanted to ask with this, and this kind of gets into where we're at with the 2024 incarnation of Guthix Sleeps, is the nostalgia for people who have played it before enough to carry it when you compare it to other grandmasters that are out there? And is that part of why what we're seeing here today? And this kind of goes into what I want to talk about with some of the story stuff, because everybody knows, of course, being the first Grandmaster quest, it back in the day did things that nobody knew were possible for a quest. It had you world hopping, which you can largely mitigate today with NPC contact if you so choose to. It had you assembling an ensemble cast, only to have them, of course, unceremoniously die against Lucian. And with that was a huge shock factor back then, saying goodbye to people like Duradel and Hazelmere. Does that stand up today? And I think that's where we pivot into our discussion of what we have today in this version of the quest. And Sirion, let's go to you on that, because I know you wanted to you had some points you wanted to mention about, in particular, the 2024 version of it and that kind of shock value.
Yeah, I think, it maybe I'm not giving the quest enough credit, but if you look at it in the context of what we have gotten since, I feel that it doesn't quite hold up to modern day expectations. Like, if you look at some of the deaths that have been presented in other quests, some of which we have talked about on the show, others we haven't.
Let's just say Dragon Slayer 2, and if people want to know what deaths, some of the kind of deaths we're talking about, you can look into that.
Yeah, like,
Thank you for not spoiling.
But the thing is, like, all of the characters that sort of die in that, like, they are three-dimensional characters, and the character death makes sense as part of the character arc, right? It's a conclusion of their character arc. In a way, what they did with Hazelmere in this quest makes sense, right? Like, it is sort of heavily hinted towards that this will happen, and even though it wasn't like a major character, like, it builds up to it. Hinted. It makes sense.
It was hinted in the Gnome quest.
He outright said it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So I would not call that hinted.
He outright said it and predicted it. We just didn't know the time.
Yeah.
And this, it's as short as that little arc is. This is a conclusion to that arc. So in terms of writing, it makes sense. But for all of the other characters, we have never really interacted with them besides using, their right-click assignment option in the overworld, because why would we talk to them, right? Like, they are flat two-dimensional characters, and I feel that if you replace that group of characters with, nameless elite White Knight warriors, you get the exact same emotional impact on that. So it feels non-impactful, and I think back in the day, killing of characters with a snap of your fingers was still a way where the players were like, oh damn, this is serious. But I feel you can't pull that off anymore if you've done that before. Multiple times in a better way. I feel like a
lot of it, the effect is ruined because they literally did exactly this before. Anyone who knows anything about it, knew that was happening. So I don't think it was ever possible for it to have that effect. And I don't really I don't find it a helpful comparison.
Okay, well, I have a question. And imagine this, okay? Imagine you go to the grocery store and you're going through the produce section, right? And
Okay.
and you pick up a bag of apples. But you get home and that bag of apples isn't the right kind of apples, and you open it up and you're really disappointed with that. And I think that's exactly what you're describing here with the character section.
What?
That's a metaphor I don't quite get.
Well,
Hello?
basically you went into this expecting something else based on a previous expectation, but you didn't get that. It's like you bought Mac. It's like you wanted
What?
Macintosh,
No,
but
I
you got
got
Granny Smith
exactly
apples
what I
instead.
expected, because exactly the same thing happened.
Right, but I think people wanted the shock value, and I think that's what the label on the bag said. But when they opened their apples, they didn't get that.
I mean, I see what you're saying is people expected it to have the same impact as what Guthix
Yes.
Sleep had back in the day. But for that, Earth is right? The quest already exists and has existed for 15 years. You're never gonna get the same effect. So, in that
Right.
that respect, I fully believe, and this was my fear from the start. I don't know if I have vocalized this on the show or not.
No, you did not.
But it was my fear from the start that, it's never going to have the same impact as while Guthix Sleeps, because a big part of what makes while Guthix Sleeps have the, let's say, cult status that it has is because it was the first one to ever do a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And here's an interesting idea behind this, is that, obviously with While Guthix Sleeps going to poll, that means that the OSRS team wants to put Lucian and the Stone in play, right? Now, have this poll...
I suppose, but to come back to it, no, this quest did not give me, a massive Grandmaster experience. I was hoping for a little bit of more of a rework, maybe a dialogue rework, just to bring it up to standards, but they remained quite truthful to the original, which there's something to be said for that as well. But I think, yeah.
Most of the dialogue is in those books.
You get what's on the bag. It's a decent quest. None of it is super bad. Nothing stood out negatively to me. Nothing stood out positive. Well, not much of it stood out positive for me either.
Hang on. I just want to say that I enjoyed it while I was doing it.
I didn't dislike it.
Okay.
It's not going to go in my top 5 of best quests in old school. Or top 10. Whereas, maybe not today, but at least 5 to 10 years ago, if you asked any quester what their top, what the best quest ever was, I think 3 out of 4 times they would tell you while Guthix Sleeps.
Yeah.
Are you in the same position, Earth, that it wouldn't go in your top 5 on old school?
Keep in mind, this is the only Grandmaster quest in old school I've done.
Fair. Fair.
So I really enjoyed it. But I don't have the same, because y'all have done...
Just Song of the Elves was our only other Grandmaster.
Oh, you haven't done Dragon Slayer 2 yet?
No, we're a bit away from that.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have anything to compare it to, so I really enjoyed it.
And see, I think that's I think that's the difference there, is that I don't think the quest is inherently bad. And when I look at quests, I always say, does it do what was promised on the tin in terms of the quest description and the direction that the story was going to go? Was it done well with, good graphics, good audio, and without any major glitches on launch day? And I think if you can tick all those boxes, you have a good quest. That's at least a 4 out of 5. And I think for this, while Guthix Sleeps is in that category, but like you're saying, Sirion, it doesn't necessarily compare with some of the native, old school lore that we've seen over the last number of years in game, because it's just from that 2008 time period that was being used as a vessel to put Lucian and the stone in play, I feel. And
yeah, in a sense, yeah. Like if I think about it, you know, I feel that there are it's so hard to measure things, right? Like I could say better quests, but by what measure, right? Like in terms of skill, there's not a lot of old school quests that operate at the skill that this quest does. Fair enough, right? Like that's a thing to consider. In terms of storytelling, though, I think we've gotten so much further, and to me, that is the biggest draw to these quests. And in that respect, like I feel that the same story and the same outcomes could have been conveyed in a more compelling way.
And that's where I was going to go with this, is that I said, you know, the decision was made to put Lucian and the stone in play, and they pulled while Guthix sleeps. And of course, that's going to pass because it has that cult status. But if that didn't pass, you can bet that at some point, either this year or maybe next year, the team would have put out a different quest that would have told the exact same, or would have got rather to the same endpoint of putting Lucian and the stone in play. Because they have been very, very clear that they want to advance their Majorat storyline, and the stone is one angle of that. So I think had this poll not passed, we would have got what you were talking about, which is, of course, a native old school, you know, variant of this sort of quest.
It might have just taken longer, right? Because now you need all of the extra dev time. So
yeah, entirely true in that regard. On that, and you know,
and in that sense, you know, I think all three of us can say we enjoyed playing this quest. So, and maybe it's a totally acceptable outcome.
Yeah, and you know, like I was, and you guys listening to the podcast don't get this, because we don't, you know, show our live reactions to the quest, but I was absolutely hilariously complaining over the boss fight in this quest, only to realize that I had an option on in my client that was making it so that I was having issues clicking my spells. And, you know, you take all that away, it's an entirely different experience. And, you know, upon realizing my problems were self-inflicted, I had a good time with While Guthix Sleeps, just as I had a good time with Song of the Elves.
I mean, I think the biggest difference between this and the RS3 one was the Surok fight.
Yeah?
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, we'll get to combat in just a minute.
Okay.
But I want to know, is there any, from what we can tell here, are there any, you know, major, you know, lore ramifications in terms of what was changed here? Because I think we end up in the same spot, and things maybe are just a little bit more abridged in the middle and put into the books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just overall, I feel the quest was a little bit anticlimactic, right? Like in the end, you get into the state where, sure, Lucian has the stone now, fine. But other than that, nothing ever changes. And I felt like a little bit of dissonance towards the end. Just thinking about the fact that, you know, we put the best of the best up against Lucian, right? Like that's the whole point. It's like the elite task force. It's like the heroes of the world. And we're going to go up against Lucian, and he just snaps his finger and basically obliterates that entire elite task force.
Yeah.
Then Lucian gets the stone, and then you finish the quest. It's like, oh well, better next time. That to me, it didn't quite resonate with me. That you know, it feels like there should be more despair and it should be more dire, and that wasn't really there. That wasn't really conveyed. And I think the original quest got away with that because you still have all of the revelations of, you know, the Stone of Jazz is a thing now. But we, in our storyline, already know about the Stone of Jazz from, like, the Temple of the Eye and some other places that will not be mentioned in this moment. So that, like, the entire quest did end, like, a little bit on a low note for me. Like, I thought that the Surok fight was the highlight of the quest. And
I agree.
I don't want to say it went downhill from there, but it kind of did.
And for me, I want to play that fight again with a proper user interface that's not fighting me step by step. And the reason for this is, and I say this, is because you, Earth, you got that on your first go through it.
Yeah, well, kind of. I had to go train magic a little bit more and change what I was doing. I was using, I think, Mystic Robes, and then I got 70 and got some RMs, and then I got that first try. So it was more an equipment issue than
A skill
anything,
issue.
but yeah.
I had a skill
Well, I
issue
mean,
with
it
my
kind of
UI.
was a skill issue if we want to.
Right, if you want
But,
to, slice the
you
piece
know.
down the middle, right?
I only had 65 magic and I
Yeah.
needed 70.
Yeah, so in effect, you just
um,
needed to mix the peas in with the full dinner there, and then you were good to go.
what is with you and food metaphors today?
I think he's hungry. Have you had breakfast yet, Shane?
Yeah,
Of course.
did you eat?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
But so you guys like the Surrak fight? I think it was interesting because I also talked to some folks who were much higher level than us, in the high 80s and 90s of Magic, and they were like, we just face tanked it with food and blood magic.
Yeah, see, I had like the minimum requirements for it.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think that's where you got to kind of lean into the actual things that are going to make it easier to do. And I also just want to go back to the feedback post that we've been referencing on and off here, because they said in this feedback post that they're specifically looking at hotfixing things to make certain boss fights in this quest more difficult with this. And I'm wondering if that is the Surrak fight or just the balance elemental. Because I think the Surrak fight is interesting enough mechanically that you probably don't need to change it for a mid-boss fight. For a mid-boss fight.
Mechanically, it's perfectly fine. I did it. I mean, I don't think I could have afforded to face tank the entire fight, but
No.
I did mess up a few times, and I came out with like a whole bunch of spare food.
Yeah.
Yeah, although I mean, I feel like it was one of those where like you either got it or you died.
Right, because if you don't handle the specs properly, it's going to hit for upwards of 50 or so, right? And you can only heal that so many times. And full disclosure for what my issue with this is before I went into this fight, I rearranged my magic spell book so that I would have the four elemental spells: telegrab, alchemy, weakened, and a snare, all within a small click range of each other. And I didn't turn off the option to reorder spells. So what was happening is I was mousing in too quick and mousing out too quick, that I was just dragging the spell icon just a teeny tiny little bit, and as a result of that was messing up the click capture and messing up, of course, my ability to hit the big surges that were coming in at me and cast weaken and snare when I needed to with that. So that was my problem with that, and I think if that didn't happen, I would have got through it a lot easier, because I did when I finally turned that off. So the balance elemental, though, how'd you guys find that?
I mean, I found it slightly too punishing.
In terms of just how quick it was changing back and forth.
I mean, between that and the giant stat drops,
right,
including prayer. So, like, it's one thing to miss an attack by a tick, but then it also drains like 40 prayer points with that one hit. So
Yeah.
like if you miss one and you don't have enough for the next to like swap and then drink your restore potion, it's going to hit you again, which is going to drain more prayer, which you're going to have to scramble, and then it's going to hit you again, and then you're just dead. So, like...
Yeah, I get that.
Like it can cause like a death spiral, basically.
Yeah, like it snowballs very quickly.
I messed up like a single switch because I confused like magic and melee because they look fairly similar. And like I think it took me like 2, 3, 4 cycles. This was like fairly early in the fight as well. Like it took me like 2, 3, or 4 cycles just to get back into the rhythm and get my restores and everything. Like one mistake just sort of propagates through the fight. And in the end, that was basically the only time I actually used like some of my supplies, and I came out with most of my supplies intact. But
yeah,
same.
Yeah. And And I was failing, before I even got to 50% HP when I was trying to change combat styles. So I just, sat there. I sat on one combat style and then just managed the prayer. And much like you, I had, one slip up about, maybe 2/3 way through the fight where I had to recover it by, chugging a bunch of restores and then food and then get back on the right prayer. And then we were good from there. So it took a while longer, but I got it done by just using one style. Did you guys use one style, or did you guys switch weapons and whatnot?
You are far more stubborn than I am. So I swapped up styles. I had, first time I had Arum Staff, and then that wasn't working out for me, and I went back to the old trusty Even Blast or Ivan Blast.
Nice.
Is it? And then that one worked for me perfectly.
Okay.
It was also a lower skill level, so like I got hit with one thing. I didn't have to go back and then redo the spell and the prayer and the potions and right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I love my trident.
Some bronze knives with me too, just whenever it.
Oh, okay.
That was the strategy back in the day, wasn't it?
I have no memory of what the strategy was back in the day.
It was for one of these, something in this.
For tormented demons, I think.
Yeah.
Because you want them to change. You want to change their style. So I did bring a switch.
I'm gonna just use the staff to attack, to whack it, and it did surprisingly well. I was hitting like 17, so it's like, damn, this is.
Well, yeah, that Ivan staff has a plus 40 crush bonus for some reason. Which is weird when you look at that.
And Arum's has 65.
God damn. Okay, that's interesting. And
I didn't bother with switching at all, even on my first attempt.
That's because I messaged you about that, and you just did it.
Because you messaged me about it, and I was like, you know what, fine. And because the fight, I mean, you need to keep up your prayer, but like at 80 prayer, just having to protect prayers on you can keep that up for a very long time with just a few doses of prayer potion.
Yeah.
So. And you're drinking restores anyway when you mess up, which also restores prayer. So I was just sitting there, I'm just going to wait for my moment, because you take no damage whatsoever, right? Like, I think the fight would be very different if, like, at least part of the damage went through your protection prayers.
Like, are you suggesting a rework to protection prayers?
No, I'm not. But for most bosses, it's
already
the case.
You couldn't.
Exactly.
So, but I think they need to make the skill drains less punishing if they do that, because then you've got.
That's what I would do. Make the skill drains less punishing, and make it hit like slightly through prayer, so that you can't just sit there and tank it in eternity. I think that will add like a little bit of time pressure to the fight, right? Because you're now actually going through your supplies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in like the last phase where like 2 ticks attack you, even if it only like hits like 1 or 2 each attack, like that's every 2 ticks, right? Like at that point your stats are like your hit points should be draining fairly fast, and you have to worry about prayer. I think it would be a better fight overall.
Yeah.
Even though and it keeps the main mechanics intact.
What did you prefer more, the Fragment of Saren or the Balance Elemental?
Oh, the Fragment.
And I think that's what you get to. And keep in mind, folks, we haven't done Desert Treasure 2 yet, or as has been mentioned earlier in the show, Dragon Slayer 2. So we don't necessarily have the experience of those boss fights.
Or Sins of the Father, for that matter.
But we did have immediately, right in front of our head, the Fragment of Saren from Song of the Elves, and the difference between that fight and the Balance Elemental fight, and even the Tormented Demon fight, I think speaks volumes as to why people want, as according to the potential upcoming hotfixes in the feedback post, quote reads, "We'll be doing a balance pass on the quest combat difficulty compared to other Grandmaster quests. Effectively, we just want to make sure that while Guthix Sleeps stands up sensibly against the likes of Dragon Slayer 2 or Monkey Madness 2, after seeing feedback that it may feel a little bit too easy at the moment."
So what is for both of you, like a question, what is your opinion about just downgrading this quest to master? Like leave the combat as it is and just downgrade it to a master quest. Because if you look at, in terms of the epicness or skill, I think you can, like, it does with length. You can compare this, I think, with a Kingdom Divided, which is a master quest. And I don't know how the combat in a Kingdom Divided stacks up, but like...
Yeah, if you've done Kingdom Divided, how did it feel compared to that combat-wise?
Kingdom Divided, let me...
That's the Corrin finale. I know for me personally, while you're looking that up, you could definitely put this in at Master and leave it as it is, because we all know that there's going to be something else Majorat Stone related coming after this that could, tick that Grandmaster box.
I don't have anything to compare it to in old school, but what combat level are y'all? What are your combat stats?
I'm 92.
I'm 96 combat. My magic level was 78 for this quest, which was the main stat I used.
Yeah, I'm 92 with 75 magic.
Yeah, see, I started with 65 and I found it too hard, and this is the first quest that I've had an issue with, and I guess I'm 70, 65, 71 melee stats, and then 62 ranged and 70 magic now.
Oh, yeah. Right, that's, you wow, okay, yeah.
So I'm lower level, and I found it difficult, and I don't know. It's the first one I've had issues with since I've started playing.
The sense I get with old school is that Grandmaster quests are supposed to be something that you should really, have upwards between somewhere 90 and 100 combat to walk through easily.
Oh, I mean, they all have 95 plus combat as a recommendation, including Guthix Sleeps.
Yeah, no, it would have been a cakewalk then.
Yeah, exactly. But like, Song of the Elves was not a cakewalk. No. I am sure that with these stats, Desert Treasure 2 will not be a cakewalk, because I've heard the stories.
Oh yeah, my plan before any Grandmaster quest, Sirion, is to just park myself
max
down
combat?
at max combat, either at Nightmare Zone or Pest Control. Probably Nightmare Zone, right? But it's such an interesting thing, because I want to go to the quest tree on this, like the list of requirements for this quest. And you're right. Does this deserve to be a Grandmaster quest in 2024? A Tale of Two Cats, Nature Spirit, Tears of Guthix, Temple of the Eye, Wanted, Hand in the Sand, Dream Mentor, Fight Arena, Path of Glaufrey, and Defender of Iraq. That was Grandmaster in 2008.
I don't have an issue with it, but I don't have the same things to compare it with that y'all do. So
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Sirion, where are you at on leaving it Grandmaster or Master? Because you posed the question initially.
Oh, that's mean. I was asking the question, so I didn't have to answer it myself. Look, I don't know. I feel this is the story that I think I told you, Shane, earlier today. Where let's say that you are trying to convince someone who maybe knows a little bit about old school but not a lot. Why, like maybe you're trying to convince an RS3 player that old school quests are where it's at. Right, like this is the pinnacle of questing, and I think Grandmaster quests with their epicness should represent that. And I feel that if you let someone play while Guthix sleeps, they're gonna. I don't know. I don't think it puts the best of what old school has forward, and that I find a little bit disappointing because I haven't done the other quests. I only know this from like secondhand, and maybe we need to go back and revisit this question ages like in the future when we've got the quest cape. But I feel that while Guthix Sleeps sort of undermines the perfect streak that Grandmaster quests have had because it just doesn't quite hit on the same level. But is it enough to kick it down to Master Quest? I don't know. It is still,
I mean,
let's be honest. The ratings are arbitrary to begin with.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you've got Legends Quest, which I know y'all's feelings about in Master, and Monkey Madness.
Well, Guthix Sleeps definitely feels bigger than that.
Yeah, it feels bigger.
And it has got, and I think if you...
And the Fremenic Exiles, too.
Also, just look at the world ramifications for it.
Song. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's just the difficulty. I think it's
the world ramifications.
What it does. And I also, they could never, it was the first Grandmaster quest, they could never downgrade it because that was kind of its big selling points, right? So
fair enough. Yes. Fair enough.
All right. Well, we'll put a T in that one. What about the Tormented Demons? Was that engaging?
Look, I haven't tried killing them after the fight. Oh, I mean, during the quest, they were like a pushover. Let's be honest.
Okay.
Did y'all have to teleport out and resupply?
No.
No, I did.
I didn't, and I think if you did, it sort of it breaks the flow of the quest. So I think that's unfortunate. Yeah, exactly. I didn't have to. One of the Tormented Demons didn't even aggro me.
Yep.
So I was just killing one of them like slowly, and then the other one, even when I started attacking it, didn't aggro me.
Oh, so okay.
Nope. So I was just sitting there chilling. I didn't need prayer. I didn't need food. I was just sitting there. I think I used my switch once.
Yeah, and then like I had to leave and resupply. And then
walk all the way back.
Yeah, I mean it teleported, but it wasn't that far. But then it put me on like the other side of the stone, and I had my stats boosted, and I just used, I think, Ivan Blast again, I assume, to kill them off.
No. You messaged me and you used the surges because you.
Oh, right.
Because you tested that.
Because I had the. Shane didn't believe me, and I told him, I bet you can use like the max level spell because your stats are boosted. And he was like, that's not how it works. And then it was. I used fire. What is it? Surge?
Wave.
Yeah. I had to use the Wrath runes.
That's the wave, I think. Wave spells.
No, it's Surge. Surge.
Oh, it is Surge. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because Ivan Blast, I think, remains like the best like magic spell you can use until fairly high on before you switch to like, I think the Warped Scepter only becomes really good at the point where you basically switch to powered staves anyway.
Yeah.
Whatever that means, I don't know. I'm not up on all your magical sticks at the high level of old school yet. Eventually, but not now.
Okay, Shane.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a bit about the rewards for this quest before we bring it home to the end. So, obviously, you have the dollops of XP in thieving, farming, herblore, and hunter, and of course, the biggest thing is access to the ancient Guthix temple, and we'll get to those, but I also just want to talk briefly about the elite black armor in particular, because that has an equal prayer bonus to proselyte if anybody's looking for something like that. Granted, it doesn't have the same defensive bonuses, but if you're praying, right?
Yeah.
So that's something, and it actually looks quite good too. With that, I will say.
Also, we still haven't done the quest for proselyte, so...
Right, we haven't.
Which one is that?
The Slug Menace.
Y'all picked a really weird order to do your stuff in.
It's mainly whatever we feel like on the given day.
We're not. We've sort of skipped some of the lower level ones because, you know,
You don't like free XP?
it's more. I would love the free XP, but because we have so limited time that we actually spend on questing, yeah.
Yeah, like we haven't even touched Mauritania yet outside of Priest in Peril.
And Ghost
Seriously?
And Ghost Ahoy, yeah.
See, I've really been enjoying those.
I've heard good things about them. I've heard good things about them on this side. So, but in any case, there's the elite black armor. If you're looking for something that ties proselyte with a little bit less defensive bonus, it gives 18 for the 3 pieces, and the drops on the new elite black knights that were added with this. I just want to highlight this here. Have the chance of dropping noted gems and noted gem, I guess, adjacent components. So things like noted sapphire necklaces and jade necklaces, as well as noted rubies, sapphires, and emeralds in a decent amount as well with that, amongst other things. So they
might have a better loot table than the tormented demons.
I wasn't gonna say that. I wasn't gonna say that, but you bring that up, and I feel like the Tormented Demon drop table has been something that has been honed in on with no relent by the community here on this, to the point that Jagex made note that they, with these kind of drop tables, they start relatively low impact like this, then they can scale up more so if needed.
I think there's a lot of criticism on that on the back of Zombie Pirates, where they did the opposite.
Yes. I'm looking at you, Zombie Axe, right? That's what we're thinking of?
No. We're not talking about armored zombies. We're talking about zombie pirates in the wilderness.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a fair comparison. That's a fair comparison on that. So, you think they're going to buff the tormented demons?
I think they are.
Because I wasn't sure exactly what to think about this going in, but I looked into the demon bane weaponry that comes from it, and if you're fighting demons, sure, great, but it's not gonna displace any of the other higher level items that are out there for any of the combat styles. So that's the caveat number one. And I think the second thing is that the bone claws, are soon to be renamed burning claws, do compete with the dragon claws, but they operate in a different manner to that. So they're like we talk about many times, Sirion, they do horizontal reward space very well here in old school, which I think that's where the burning claws sit in relation to the dragon claws. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, and I'm wondering, are people just, out on the look for, maybe something a little bit more, less niche than Demon Bane, or are they looking for better commons here? I wonder. What do you think the main issue is?
Oh, that's it. That's the whole thing. It's not the rares, right? Like, we can talk about rares all we want. I don't think that's the problem here. The problem is, first of all, there's a lot of discussion on whether the drop rates should be, less rare, more rare, yada yada yada. Let's not go there, right? The thing is, rares are, in only a few rare cases, the main source of value you get out of it, right? Like, even if it's like 100 mil drop, if it takes you like 20 hours or 50, let's say 50 hours, like that's 2 mil per hour. That's not actually that much. The most of the value comes out of more common drops, and I feel that's where they underjudged. So like the question is, what should they drop? Like you can add like runes. Like there was a suggestion on Reddit that they maybe should drop wrath runes because they are pretty rare. So that could be an interesting reward space for what essentially comes out of a Grandmaster quest, right? Like,
right.
You don't get access to these monsters like immediately either. So that's where the tuning needs to happen, I think.
Yeah, and I also think, they were kind of painted into a corner with the reward space here, because Dragon Claws already came from Chambers of Zerek, Dragon Plate Body's already in the game, Dagon High was already in the game. So everything that the original While Guthix Sleeps was known for, again, kicking it back to 2008, has already been done in old school. So you're kind of painted into a corner because you can't necessarily, the community said, at least for a few of those, don't bring those onto the Tormented Demon drop table. So they had to come up with something else. And the question is, how do you put something in around those tiers adjacent that's compelling for something that takes a little while to kill? And I think that's where you get to the true story on this, as to what the problem with the table is. Because you're going to be killing these for a long time, right? And like you said, what are you going to get along the way? The commons on the table are not great. Like, for example, did you know there's a 1 in 4,600 chance, apparently, according to the wiki, to get 3 Snapegrass seeds from a Tormented Demon after you get the rare seed table, which is a 1 in 78 chance.
It's perfect.
Yeah, there was this has achieved a little bit of a meme status, but like one of the drops you could get from this is like a Guam, like a grimy Guam,
and that's 1 in 39.
Not even a clean one.
No,
that's 1 in 39. A single Guam, 1 in 39 kills gives you, that's nothing. So that's basically a worthless drop,
and it's not even noted.
No, exactly.
Wow.
So you can sort of see why people are complaining.
Yeah,
about that.
Yeah, and I get that, and I'm on board with that, because I wouldn't want to, put resources into killing a Tormented Demon and get something, like that. And I mean, hell, even look at this here. For the common drop in the runes and ammunition category on this, you're looking at fire runes, chaos runes, and rune arrows. Of course, rune arrows aren't what you're going to be using to kill this boss. So, I don't know. Be interesting to see what Jagex does on this, I'll say, because I think when you look at it, everything is being compared to nostalgia from 2008, which maybe is the Achilles heel of this quest. I don't know, but at the same time, we're back to the same question about the lore and the story and the actual quest itself.
I don't know. Like I think. Yeah. Tormented demons don't need to become the thing that you kill for money, right? Like
no.
we have other, but
raids.
They should be a feasible option for finishing demon tasks, slayer tasks. And right now they're not. Because you're putting in all the extra effort because of their mechanics and you're not getting much out of it.
Yeah. But do you think if in a vacuum, if the original While Guthix Sleeps didn't exist and they put this NPC in game, do you think it would have gone over okay?
No.
Okay. Also,
I think everything else would have been good, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if the drop table isn't good, the drop table isn't good. It needs to be improved. There's no way around that.
Also,
Nostalgia or not.
they got substantially buffed in old school, by the way. In terms of their combat stats, when they arrived in 2008, they had 326 life points. Now they have 600, and alongside that, they also buffed their strength, but brought down their defense and increased their defense across the board in a number of the categories. But they still have very very low magic defense with this. So,
But like, what was the highest level weapon that was available in a game in 2008?
whip,
Probably sparrows
whip,
or the whip. Yeah.
whip.
These days we have things like the Fang, we have all of the powered staves, we have like...
So the stat changes in that regard make sense. I think it's just a question of where it lands with the drop table. But I think that pretty much brings us near the end here of our discussion about Guthix Sleeps. I'm gonna bring something back from Quest weeks of old. I didn't prepare you guys for this, but rating out of 5, Sirion.
Uh-oh.
Can we give half?
Yes, you can give halves.
3.5.
All right, Earth.
Why am I the only one who ever gives 5s? I'm the only person who's like satisfied with anything.
I give 5s when it totally blows my socks off.
It did exactly what it said it was gonna do.
Yeah. Okay. So is that
external factors? I don't think it's fair to count that against it.
Okay. So are you going to go for 5?
Hell yeah, brother.
Okay. I'm going to go for a 4 because it did what it needed to do on the tee. And, it was delivered without major game-breaking bugs. And I had a good time doing it. So in that regard, it's a 4. And for people who are unaware with how I rate quests, that's the hallmark for a good quest based on what was promised and what was delivered. If it does more and it knocks my socks off, that becomes a 5. But following from that, like you said, Earth, external factors notwithstanding, that's something that we can consider in a vacuum for this. But does anybody have anything else here on While Guthix Sleeps before we depart?
I mean, I loved the Surok fight. I think that was nice.
So that was your highlight?
Okay. It definitely was. When you told me that, the bomb part, I had to telegrab and then alk it, I was like, are you shitting me? What kind of mechanic is that? But then I did it, and I was like, huh, that's pretty neat, isn't it?
I found it very creative. It definitely felt different than existing fights by using sort of the standard spells. Love that.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat.
And that's the beauty of this, that shows that we shouldn't maybe we'll leave this as the question to the listeners, should While Guthix Sleeps be receiving this sort of criticism, given that it's very clearly a quest from 2008? Should it be held up to the modern standards? We just spent an hour talking about that. If you guys have an opinion either way, let us know. But
did the quest put their spin on it?
Yeah. So Earth, what's next for your account?
I'm working towards Dragon Slayer 2, because I really don't feel like getting well, I mean, I'm working on 60 Runecraft for Desert Treasure 2, but I'm not looking forward to 75 fire making.
Oh, you probably haven't done Winter Dot yet.
Hello?
Yeah, go hang out at Winter Toad and you'll be fine.
Oh, that's the ice thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The fire making woodcutting skilling boss.
Yeah. All right.
Old school is a wonderful can of beans. When you put your hand in it, you reach in, you get something fresh compared
Seriously,
to...
food metaphors. What are you doing?
Know. I don't know. Some days I have those, I guess.
A wonderful can of beans?
Yeah.
I think
jelly title.
Sorry, jelly beans.
I think it's about time we wrap this up so that Shane can finally have breakfast.
I did already.
But what about second breakfast?
No, I don't do that. And I especially don't have chicken sandwiches for breakfast either.
Biscuit, Shane.
Biscuit, sorry.
Biscuit.
In any case, folks, yes, you can tell that the very classic Sirion Earth Shane Dynamo is coming out at this point, and it's time to move on from this quest. So with that being said, please do take our survey, update.show/survey. It'll take you about 2 minutes to do. We'd greatly appreciate your input on that. And of course, we'll be back next week for another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.